Reading number 1 Darshan of the Image by Diana L. Eck. In Darshan of the Image by Diana L. Eck, the thesis deals with the conceptual and practical importance of Darshan, seeing and being seen by the divine. In Hindu worship, utilizing both iconic representational and un-iconic non-representational images. That is because its images from the anthropomorphic figures to natural objects all become agents of divine presence, which yield to a reciprocate relationship between devotees and divine. Emphasis is on the ancient tradition of image making in India and the theological meanings that these images represent, depicting the aspect of Hindu rituals and worship. Before we dive into the reading, there's a couple terminology that we gotta understand in order to better comprehend the reading. The first word is darshan. The word darshan comes from the Sanskrit to see or behold, and to the religious, especially the Hindus, it means the act of visual contact with a deity or sacred object, or even with a holy person. This act of seeing is not supposed to be one way only. Rather, it has always been considered a two-way confrontational between the devotee and the divine. The devotee sees the deity, and in return, the deity sees the devotee. This reciprocal vision sets up a deep linkage whereby there is an outpouring of divine grace, or darshan, from the deity onto the devotee. Hinduism harbors a very varied form of worship, and hence the worship of images ranging from anthropomorphic human-like forms to aniconic without any specific forms is also accommodated in this religion. Humanoid forms like the monkey-bodied human or the elephant-headed Ganesha are not just representative, but are looked upon as incarnations of the divine presence. Such forms help the worshipper in centering his worship and prayers. On the other hand, it is apparent that in aniconic worship, the objects being worshipped are those without a distinct form, such as a Shiva linga or sacred stone, which tends to symbolize the divine but does not bind it to a physical form. These take forms that reminded worshippers the immanence and the transcendence of the divine, which hint at the real nature of God that lies beyond any physical representation. The main supportive arguments for the thesis of the darshan of the image by Diana are theological and narrative functions of image. Hindu images are constituted by both theological and narrative functions, signifying visual theologies read and interpreted by Hindus today. The documents detail how the images, say of four-armed Shiva dancing in a ring of fire, condense various aspects and narrative of deities in a single vision symbol, hence revealing complex natures of those gods in simple, subtle gestures and emblems. Visual scriptures and didactic value. Besides their theological importance, images in Hinduism serve as visual scriptures narrating myths and stories of the tradition in a way similar to the didactic use of images in other religions' contexts. For instance, one is able to see the idea in early examples of relief sculpture in history and the possibility of its use to tell stories inside temples that would educate the population about their history and religion during a time when most of the population could not read. Their comparison is articulated with respect to creation visual context through elements such as the sculpted portals of Carthage Cathedral, wherein the aesthetic value of this religious imaginary inherently possesses a universal quality. Anthropomorphism and imagination. The anthropomorphically portrayed images in Hindu worship are brought out as a means to stretch human imagination towards the divine in the sense of juxtaposing earthly realities in an otherworldly manner. They are not images as such, but representations of such fantastic shape and form, usually multi-armed and headed or other non-human things. This demonstrates that what is being displayed artistically through creative formulation of images are hidden and divine attributes. All these arguments collectively support X's thesis, depicting a much clearer picture of how images in Hinduism are not mere representational figures, but bear a deep theological, narrative, and didactic meaning. They represent an intermediary between the divine and the devotee, thereby depicting the divine in a contradictory and intricate form that forces the soul and mind to an intellectual exercise. I'll be using Shiva Nataraja from the reading as a case study and evidence to support the arguments. Theological and narrative functions of images. Visual theologies, images in Hinduism have a theological function and often also offer a means for the provision of narratives to be read and interpreted by Hindus of today. The reading evidence how images like this four-armed Shiva dancing within a ring of fire embody several aspects and stories of deities into one sign, and while doing so prove the multifacetedness of those gods with simple, subtle gestures and emblems. Far from having a single theological value, in Hinduism, images belong to a system of visual scriptures of narrative myths and stories of a tradition. Like the didactic value of images in other religious systems, I will elaborate more on the theological and narrative functions of images in Hinduism with the help of delving into the intricate symbology and multi-layered meanings this image embodies. The depiction of Shiva in the form of Nataraja is full of theological meanings, inputting to the cosmic circles of creation and destruction, as well as the eternality of the universe. The ring of fire therefore represents the cosmos, and so it represents the circle of birth and death, and the unreal character of the material world. Shiva's dance inside it is just a metaphor of the divine act of creation and destruction, preserving the balance in the universe. Each of four arms of Shiva have deep meanings. The drum stands for creation, fire is marked for destruction, fearlessness is epitomized with the Shiva's hand gestures, while the pointing of a finger to the raised foot suggests that liberation is being offered. Images like Nataraja must be seen not only as a representation of theological concepts and narratives, but also as an engagement between believers and Shiva's dynamic posture, and the symbols he holds invites the observer to consider the broad cycles of life and the wide-ranging complexities of the universe. It is a visual theology that speaks directly to the devotee, not resorting to textual scripture, inviting for personal interpretation and personal connection. So the two functions, the theological and the narrative of Hindu images, are interrelated. The image of Nataraja is, in the case with most Hindu images, serves as a medium of unification between the divine and the devotee, enclosing complex narratives and theological concepts within a form that is at the same time accessible and profound. Images like Nataraja invites the faithful followers to plumb the depths of the Hindu theology and cosmology for personal resonance and spiritual connections within the imagery. X further elaboration on the theological and narrative functions of images in Hinduism as they direct to South Asian art as a medium of the sacred, one which permits devotees to come face to face with the divine presence through Darshan. The sacred art of South Asian in sculpture, painting, and architecture genres is characterized by such deep religious significance, where designing was not only for aesthetics, but also possessed a spirit of practicing and worship through the art objects. Diana L.X. insights into the role and meaning of images in Hinduism help us further to understand the intricate relationship of art, religion, and the sacred in South Asian culture. So my question is, how do you think this practice of Darshan, as described by Eck, would affect the devotional practice and the spiritual life of your own? My second question is, what do you think of digital worship or online Darshan? Do you think futuristic products like Apple Vision Pro will enhance the Darshan experience? Now, reading number 2 is Glancing Visual Interaction in Hinduism by Lawrence A. Babb. In the reading Glancing Visual Interactions in Hinduism by Babb, he follows on how visual interactions between the deities and the worshippers becomes a major aspect in Hinduism. The reading argues that followers seek to see the gods, while at the same time want to be seen by them, with belief in such visual exchanges underpinned by the concept of seeing as an exclusive flow, bringing seer and seen into actual contact, which enables both to absorb some of the inner virtue or power of the deity, including its power of seeing. The supportive evidence is used in the context of two contemporary religious movements and one well-respected religious film to support the depths of cultural and spiritual significance in the area of visual interactivity in Hindu worship. In the Radha Somisek, the concept of seeing, to look, and to be looked at is very meaningful to the spiritual growth of both the guru and the devotee. At many instances, the poetry in this line of sect even underlines that the changing power of a guru's glance towards a devotee may be so intense that the true spiritual connection and revelation could be brought out only then when a follower of the sect is linked to a guru through the eyes. The relationship is, therefore, not just physical in that sense of its visual nature, but has within it an inner picturing that results in profound spiritual insights, pointing to the power of visual interrelation in achieving spiritual salvation. The Brahma Kumara spiritual movement focuses on the soul side, or the vision of other people as souls, not bodies, through a form of meditation known as the Rag Yoga. It consists of a look-in activity in which the teacher and the student have an eye contact with each other to bring soul consciousness in the student. This communication is considered to represent a soul power realized in light, to depict the union of the seen and be seen it fosters in the participant, and to underline the spiritual meaning of visual interaction in Hinduism. The film J. Santoshi Ma is employed to expose the idea of Darshan in a cinematographic context, bringing in the visual element into moments in which the deities interplay with their devotees. The film gives different cases to support how the deity's gaze can be both benevolent and voiceful, depending on the actions taken by the devotees. The film also shows the cultural and religious importance of deity's glance and how the deity's glance affect your life in the real world. J. Santoshi Ma vividly illustrates the complexity and depth of the concept of Darshan in Hinduism. It shows how visual interactions between the deities and the worshippers is not merely about physical sight, but it also includes the dynamics of bestowing blessings, incurring wrath, or helping for reconciliation and healing. The film further reinforces the concept that visual engagement is an essential characteristic of Hindu spiritual practice by highlighting the cultural and religious nature of being seen by the divine, and divine's different reaction to your actions, where arrogance and disrespect will get your punishment, and submission and devotion will get your reward. Especially the reading by Bab perfectly captures the ideas of Darshan because it emphasizes the importance of attaching in-depth visual engagement in the religious context in Hinduism. This details analysis of visual interaction in Hinduism, the process of seeing and being seen, unfolds within the basic relationship between the devotees and the deities, and also within the wider cultural and artistic expressions in South Asia. The two key terms I find interesting in this reading is soul sight, which was mentioned in the Brahma Kumari section. Soul sight refers to an ability to regard another as a soul and not a physical body, promoting a deeper and spiritual way of looking at things beyond the material world. The second term is third eye, which I believe most of you guys have heard this term before, but it symbolizes the heightened perception and spiritual insight through opening the third eye and allowing a devotee to interact in a profound visual level with the divine, showing how power and visions of the divine are internalized within your human body. The two questions I had for this reading's discussion is: how does the important practice of visual interaction in Hinduism compare with visual practice in other religions or traditions? Are there any practices similar to Darshan being practiced in any other religion? And how are they related? My second question is, do you believe in soul sight? Do you think you can use this concept to see through people during daily interactions? Is it possible we can use soul sight to determine identities? Can you share how do you see one's soul? This is the end of my presentation, and thank you all for listening. That's it.